I have a listener who calls me out saying, hey, last night, another example of a motorcyclist who was killed in a crash not wearing a helmet. Jeff, you support seatbelt laws. You should be supporting helmet laws. Let's start with, we're joined by prominent Milwaukee attorney Michael Hupy. Mike, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeff.
Okay, I know you're a rider yourself, and you do a lot of work involving motorcycle rights and injuries with people on motorcycles and all that kind of stuff.
My law partner, Jason Abraham, is a rider. I am not, but we have represented over 3,000 injured bikers. We have worked for bikers' causes for decades. And it isn't a safety issue, it's a freedom of choice issue. People who ride motorcycles should decide for themselves whether they want to wear a helmet. And so often we see articles in the paper or on the radio or television that say a motorcyclist was injured, he wasn't wearing a helmet. Well, he might have had a broken arm and nothing else, but they always say he wasn't wearing a helmet. And I think that skews public opinion against the real issue here, which is freedom of choice.
At the same time, Mike, it is true that if you look at the majority of fatalities involving people on motorcycles, they're not wearing helmets. Now, that isn't to say that in all those cases people would have survived the accident if they had been wearing a helmet. But do you reject the notion that you're safer if you're wearing a helmet?
Well, you could be safer in some situations. It could be harder to see or hear if you're wearing a helmet. But don't forget, if you say people who are killed in motorcycle accidents aren't wearing a helmet, most people don't wear a helmet because there's no helmet law in Wisconsin. Right. So statistically, if no one's wearing a helmet and they're killed in an accident and it's not a head injury, they're still not wearing a helmet.
Right. So you see this basically. Do you think, from a perspective of people who ride bikes, that the experience is different riding a bike with a helmet as opposed to not wearing a helmet?
Definitely, because you have the wind in your face and you can have the experience of riding on the open road and not being restricted by a heavy object on your head.
Right. So unlike my argument with a seatbelt, where I actually think the seatbelt is, putting aside the freedom of choice issue, I think that's a minor inconvenience. It really doesn't change the driving experience. Wearing a helmet for a motorcyclist does alter the experience in a material way.
Absolutely. A seatbelt really doesn't alter your experience. A helmet does.
I don't get the sense that there's any real significant push from the legislature to adopt helmet laws. Would you agree with me on that?
Absolutely, and the bikers have a tremendous lobby. Tommy Thompson was on board with the bikers' rights issue on freedom of choice regarding helmets. Scott Walker's on board. One of my employees, Tony Sanfilippo, started A-Beta Wisconsin, a bikers' rights organization 40 years ago. Scott either is or was a member. Tommy always supported that organization, and it just comes down to freedom of choice.
Good enough. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us this afternoon. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Absolutely. Prominent local attorney Michael Hupy, who does a lot of work in this area.